Shades of 2006, not just because Denny Hamlin won at Pocono again, but because of the racing, man. That was some of the best racing I've seen at Pocono in a long, long time. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. My brain literally cannot comprehend what I just spent the last 3 hours watching. That was Pocono? This feels like the Twilight Zone. How did Pocono do that? Okay, all right, let's take a step back. I'm gonna talk about the race. I'm gonna talk about, some of my key takeaways. I'm gonna talk about the top finishers, talk about some of the playoff implications. My heart's still thumping after that finish. But all right, let's talk about the racing, because we went to Pocono a month and a half ago in June, and it sucked. Pocono, I'm hard on Pocono sometimes because the racing traditionally there has not really been to my liking. Not a lot of passing, a lot of single file, a lot of spaced out, not great racing. And June was the worst it's ever been. There was almost no passing during green flag conditions. It all happened like going into turn one on the restart, and then after that, no passing. So the changes they made, they didn't change the aero package for this race, but they added grip strips in turn one, on the outside in turn two, on the outside in turn three, and especially I would say turn one a little bit, but especially with turn three, it really seemed to help. It turned, turn three especially, into a true passing corner. It was a great passing zone. Guys could arc it into the high up in turn three, turn down low, and get a huge run on the front stretch. So there was a lot more passing in today's race than in June. And that's not a hard thing to accomplish, because June had pretty much zero passing anywhere near the front of the pack, really anywhere in the pack in general. So this race had quite a bit of passing, I feel like, for a Pocono race. This looked like vintage Pocono, looked like Gen 4 Pocono in some ways, with just crazier restarts, because they were 4 wide, 5 wide, 6 wide, 7 wide, 8 wide, 9 wide, not just on the straightaways, but in the corners sometimes here at Pocono. I'm exaggerating a little bit. But those restarts were absolutely insane, something this package has consistently done this year, but goodness me, I'm talking fast because there's just a lot coming at me right now, and I'm still not sure I believe what I just saw. Because if you happen to miss that Pocono race in June, or you didn't see my video about it or anything like that, then you might have forgotten, or you might not know, but that race in June was unwatchable. For the day, I kind of renounced my NASCAR fanaticism for a day. I was like, I can't support this. This was a joke. I think I gave it like a 30% on my groovy gauge, which honestly was probably being generous at the time. So coming into this race, I knew they'd made the changes to the track, but I thought it'd be a slightly better race, but I didn't think it'd be this. Now, I'll save my groovy gauge for the end. I'm not giving this race a 100, not a 90 even, not even probably an 80, but this has got a pretty good score, and by Pocono standards, a positive score on my groovy gauge should be taken as a total and complete victory. So this race was outstanding. Still hard to pass. It's Pocono. It's still very hard to pass, but with the addition of the grip strips, especially in turns 1 and turns 3, it made those turns more viable. People could make moves up to the front. We saw guys drive through the field. Kyle Busch did it. Kyle Larson early in this race started at the rear. He drove his way up into the top 5 in stage 1. That's something that literally was impossible a month and a half ago at this track, so to see them do it here today was really fun to watch. So racing was outstanding. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end when I go put this race on my groovy gauge, give it an actual score. But now let's talk about the top finishers. Let's talk about the winner. Let's talk about that crazy finish. Let's do it. Okay, so for starters, Denny Hamlin gets the win, his 3rd win of the year. He wins again. Pocono used to be his playground, but since the repave, however many years ago, he's taken a step back, but Joe Gibbs Racing has dominated here in recent years. Kyle Busch won in June. Kyle Busch was a formidable again today. Truex was good. Eric Jones was good. All these Joe Gibbs Racing cars up here in the top 10, top 5, but Denny Hamlin reigned supreme. It was a fuel mileage race at the end of this thing, but Denny Hamlin and team seemed more confident with their fuel mileage than most of their other nearby competitors. And then during that kind of run of late race cautions, they were still able to save, and they saved up enough fuel that they were able to have the control position on the restart, and were able to hold off the rest of the field. Really wasn't that big a deal. Pretty much everybody, though, was concerned about fuel if they'd had one more restart. They had the stall when Josh Bilicki, or whatever his name is, stalled, and that forced a late race restart. And then when the wreck happened between Kurt Busch and Ricky Stenhouse, where just 5 wide on the exit of a turn, it's gonna happen. You're gonna have wrecks. At that point, people were starting to get tense. If one more caution had happened, I think Hamlin, Jones, a lot of these guys here in the top 5 were gonna have to pit, and it was gonna really change the complexion of this race. So credit to everybody for keeping it clean, because Denny Hamlin, you see these guys up here in the top 5, they deserve these finishing results. They earned them. They ran up there towards the front all race long. So credit to Denny Hamlin, looking, like I said, looked like shades of 2006 when he swept both Pocono races as a rookie. So great for Denny. More important points going into the playoffs. Great day for Joe Gibbs Racing, obviously, but possibly the most important finish here in the top 5 is Eric Jones finishing 2nd. He came into this race 14th on the playoff grid. He had about a 28-point cushion, which he kind of built up based on a couple other top fives here earlier this month. He was my pick to win today. Thought he had it, but ultimately that team did a great job of managing fuel in that final run. He was leading late, but ultimately gave the lead up to Hamlin in order to help save fuel, and that probably is what saved his race. Otherwise, he might not have gotten the top 10 or top 5 that he deserved. But a huge points day for Erik Jones. We'll look at the standings here in a second, but Jones continues to fly up the playoff grid. Huge for him, given that his name comes up. He's still in the hot seat when it comes to keeping that 20 car with Christopher Bell and everything. But this is huge. Jones has been on a tear this month. I'll be pretty quick here with a lot of these guys. Truex finishing third. Not a lot to say. He was good. He was as good as ever. Martin Truex Jr. is just good. Joe Gibbs Racing is good. Very good day. Good. Very good day for Truex. Good. It was good. Very good. William Byron finished fourth? What the heck? I don't even remember seeing him up there. All right, well, good for William Byron. He was my underdog pick for this race, so I'll actually take credit for that, too. He kind of snuck in, I guess, there. He must have had a really good restart at the end there. A couple of these guys, like Hemrick up there in the top 10. Some of these guys really snuck in there at the end of this race, but credit to William Byron. He's another guy who's a little better off in the points situation than some of these guys like Jones or Larson, but still needs consistent good days. Great day for him. Kyle Larson, I mentioned it right there. He's a little ahead of Erik Jones in the points, but he still needs good finishes, and great finish here. Top 5. Didn't collect a whole lot of stage points, but top 5 is very good. Harvick 6th in the Gen X car. I did not like the Millennial car earlier this year. The pink, I just didn't like. The phrases on it were cringy. This car, I actually kind of like the way this Gen X car looked. Pretty gnarly. I hate this. But not 6th place finish for him after leading a lot of laps early on. Backs up that win last week, continuing to run well. He's right there with the Gibbs guys, but just not quite there. Daniel Hemrick 7th. Is that his career best finish? I think he got a top 5 at a plate track earlier this year, actually. So still, great finish for Daniel Hemrick. Super Speedway, not a plate track, my bad there. Brad Keselowski 8th. Solid day, but Penske again lagging pretty far behind Joe Gibbs Racing. It looks, in the last few weeks, it looks at least like maybe Joe Gibbs Racing is pulling away from Penske, and maybe Stuart Haas has caught up to Penske, with Harvick winning last week, and no Penske cars in the top 5 here this week. That's how maybe it looks, but I don't know. Lots can still happen here before the playoffs start. Kyle Busch led laps, finished 9th. He got kind of stuck on a weird pit strategy because of when the cautions fell in stage 3, so kind of just salvaged a day there. Ryan Blaney 10th, given that he got some damage, hit the wall, I remember early on, had to pit kind of out of sequence, come back for a top 10, really good. Clint Boyer, another guy right there on that playoff bubble. 11th place is good, but will it be good enough long term? Still, he's protecting points today, but not doing a lot to extend his points cushion. Almirola 12th, Logano 13th, Ryan Newman 14th. Another solid, quiet, consistent day for Newman. He's trying to sneak into that top 16, or he's trying to stay in the top 16. Jimmy Johnson actually won a stage. He won stage 2 thanks to Kyle Busch pitting at a weird time, but Jimmy Johnson won stage 2, only his second stage win of his career, but 15th place finish, not actually quite as good as he ran a lot of this race. I know winning that stage was kind of lucky, but realistically, he ran up around the top 10 for a lot of this race, so solid day for him. He's still, I will look at the points in a second, he still finds himself on the outside looking in, but he might have gained a few points this week. Chris Buescher, another solid finish. Keep an eye on Chris Buescher, y'all. I'm not saying he's going to win a race anytime soon, but man, that guy is... he's showing off this year. Benedetto, another solid finish. Menard, and the rest of this top 20, not super notable. Other notable finishers, Daniel Suarez ended up 24th. He was penalized on the second to last restart for laying back and trying to jump the start illegally. Fair penalty, good call on NASCAR's part. They've been, after last week's kind of run-in with Eric Almirola, they paid very close attention to the restarts today, and that was a fair penalty in my opinion. Suarez ended up finishing 24th as a result. Tough for him in the points. He's another guy currently on the outside looking in. Pocono's probably been his best track, and he qualified well for this race, but 24th place, that's got to be a missed opportunity for that team. Chase Elliott ended up finishing last, 38th, after he blew a tire. Really rough month and a half or so for Chase Elliott. He doesn't have a top 10 finish since early June. Actually, the last time we were at Pocono was the last time he finished a race inside the top 10. So for the last 6-7 weeks or so, it's been a struggle for Chase Elliott, man. He won that race at Talladega. Hendrick looked like they were kind of on the up and up. And since then, some of the other Hendrick guys, William Byron's running pretty well. Alex Bowman, has been up and down. He got that win earlier this year. But Chase Elliott has taken a step or two backwards. So kind of concerning. He wrecked 2 cars this weekend. He wrecked his primary in practice, wrecked his backup in the race. So Hendrick's spending a lot of money on backup cars the last couple weeks. Hopefully they start to get that ship righted a little bit going into the playoffs, because I really do think Chase Elliott is still a deep playoff threat, but they haven't looked like it in the last month or so. So got to fix things. This has just been a bad streak. Some of it's been bad luck, but some of it's been bad performance by the driver, the team, the crew chief, everybody. So they got to figure it out. Also, Kurt Busch finished 27th. He had a run-in with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Like I said earlier, second to last restart. They made contact on the restart. It was 5 wide. Kurt Busch squozed Stenhouse up into the wall, which cut and wrecked Stenhouse's car basically, but it wasn't really Kurt Busch's fault. There were 3 cars underneath him that didn't give room either, so it was kind of just, Stenhouse was just the victim of circumstance. But down the back straightaway, right after that happened, Stenhouse drove up behind and wrecked Kurt Busch on purpose, clear as day. So I don't know, maybe some drama there. Stenhouse doesn't really strike me as a hothead. Kurt Busch definitely does, so be interesting to see if anything comes out of that. But a tough break for both those guys. Stenhouse still trying to make the playoffs, and things continue to look worse and worse for him every single week. And Kurt Busch wants to keep that momentum up. You want to keep that momentum up. Kurt Busch has been riding a great wave of momentum all season long in that one car. You want to keep that up going into the playoffs. We'll see though. This could be a snag. Now, before I go to the groovy gauge and rate this race, let's look at the point standings after Pocono. See all the drivers obviously locked in. Almirola's doing pretty well. Ryan Blaney with a salvageable day today, pretty good. Byron as well. But now you look there, 13th through 20th. It's gotten pretty interesting again. Eric Jones with strong finishes in stage 1 and stage 2 and a second place finish is now 39 points to the good. Just 4 weeks ago he was on the outside looking in, but that's what 3 straight top 5s will do for you, man. Huge vault in the points for Eric Jones. He actually got past Kyle Larson, who still had a solid finish in today's race but didn't get quite as many stage points. So you see those two now have a decent cushion. 37 and 39 points, not great, but you're probably not going to lose all that in one race, probably not 2 races either, so that's a nice little cushion for them to have. Clint Boyer and Ryan Newman, though, tied there at the bottom of that zone, with Jimmy Johnson actually eating into their gap a little bit. Coming into this race, it was a 17-point gap between the bottom and the 17th position driver, but now Jimmy Johnson ate into that just a little bit. Now it's only 12 points out. If he'd been able to get maybe a better restart at the end there, make up a few more points, could have been even more dramatic, but all those stage points he earned in stage 2, definitely huge for Jimmy Johnson. And then you see there Daniel Suarez with his very disappointing day, now 31 points out. It's looking bleak for Suarez. He's starting to dip into that must-win scenario zone, but not quite there yet. There's still a few races left. There's still plenty of time. I think Suarez just needs to, he just needs to make a comeback. I don't know what to tell him. Suarez started this year out so good, so consistent, and it's just all gone downhill this summer, man. So I don't know what to tell him, but those playoff standings have gotten very dramatic, and we only have 5 races to go. 5 very different types of tracks. We got some challenging ones coming up. We got Darlington coming up. We got Bristol. We got Indianapolis. There are a lot of very different racetracks coming up to end this regular season before the playoffs start, and it's going to cater to a lot of different drivers' driving styles. That playoff grid is going to continue to change, especially around the bubble right there. But anyway, those are your top finishers. What a race today, guys. I can't say enough about this Pocono race. It wasn't the greatest race ever. Definitely probably wasn't even the greatest race this month. But it was the best Pocono race I've seen in quite a while. 2015, I think the August race was pretty exciting. It came down to a fuel mileage race. Had some interesting stuff early on. But, with that being said, let's put this race on the groovy gauge. There it is. So, I know I'm very hard on Pocono. I've made it clear. I did a video like last month where I ranked every track from my favorite to my least favorite, and poor Pocono ended up at the very bottom of my list. So I'm hard on Pocono, and I understand it, but I've always given Pocono and Pocono fans their credit. They show up to that racetrack. The crowd, the stands for this race look pretty darn full, actually more full than the race in June, which honestly, given how bad that race was, I was pretty surprised by. But credit where credit is due, this track can put on entertaining races when all the circumstances line up. And in this race, they did. I was pretty much on the edge of my seat definitely all of stage 3, and for a lot of stage 1 and stage 2, restarts were as exciting as ever. Pocono, that is one thing they've never slouched on, is restarts. But the big difference between this race and the one in June, as I've reiterated multiple times now, is that cars could run up behind each other and pass. Dirty air was still a factor, but because of the addition of the grip strips in turns 1 and turn 3 especially, cars could change their lanes and kind of get out of that dirty air a little bit to, keep their momentum going. With the way cautions fell, with the way pit strategy and the stages worked out, there were a lot of comers and goers. It was really entertaining to watch, actually, for most of this race. And ultimately, the final 40 laps or so, with the whole fuel mileage threat looming over everybody's heads, with certain drivers up towards the front in important playoff situations like Jones, like Larson, this race had something, I think, for pretty much everybody. I did not expect this from Pocono. I especially did not expect such a dramatic finish. I kind of wish they'd stayed green without any cautions, and we could have just seen if Hamlin saved enough, if Jones saved enough, if Truex, Harvick, if they had enough. That would have been really exciting and pretty chaotic. But that being said, the final 2 restarts we got were pretty fun as well. And even on that final restart, there was still the threat of fuel. I'm surprised nobody ran out of fuel, to be honest. But you could tell it was going to be close. So this race had something for everybody. The radio-style broadcast from NBC was phenomenal. A few slip-ups here and there that were kind of hard to not notice, but it was overall just a great race. I got to give this thing a 70% on the groovy gauge. pretty good overall, but for a Pocono race, this is a big, big win. I had a lot of fun watching it. Hope you guys did too, but let me know down in the comments what you thought of this race. Where would you score it on your own personal groovy gauges? But that's all I have for my show. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. Huge thank you, as always, to my Patreon supporters. Michael Harrison, at You As The Stars, Mentally Defective, Cameron James, John Koblenz, Jason Arlong, Wesley Donaldson, Isaac Dennison, Mika Suzuki, iFantasyRace.com, TheRacingInsiders.com, Matthew Koulopoulos, Pepe Luscious, Jeremy Conkling, Emilio Garcia, Joey DiMaccino, and the rest of these incredible Patreon supporters. I couldn't do this without you guys. You are the grooviest of the groovy gang, so I really appreciate the support of the show, of the channel, of me. Thank you guys a ton. I have a couple more videos up this week. As you guys can see, I got my green screen back, a little more professional. I know a lot of y'all don't like the green screen. Don't worry, I don't love the green screen either. I'd like to be in a more physical set studio at some point soon, but it's just the way things are this summer, kind of crazy. But I'll be back, more episodes this week. If you missed any of my videos from last week, I experimented with some other fun videos, so if you missed some of those, go check them out. But I'll be back very soon. Plenty of episodes this week. And then we got, I don't even know what track is next week. I honestly don't even know. Is Darlington next week? Are we going to Michigan? No, I don't even know what's next. Never mind. I'll check the schedule later. You guys probably know already. You're screaming at me in the comments. But I gotta go edit this video. Have a good rest of your weekend, everyone. I'll see you again later this week. Bye-bye, everyone. That was awesome.